Aston Martin builds visceral sports cars. Aston Martin builds luxury grand tourers. Aston Martin builds practical SUVs? Wait, what? Jared here with carbuzz.com, and no, you did not hear me misspeak. This is the 2021 Aston Martin DBX, the company's first ever crossover model. Just like Bentley, Maserati, and even Lamborghini before it, Aston Martin has realized that exotic luxury buyers just want a more practical vehicle. So today we're going to find out whether or not the DBX is a dilution of a historic brand or whether or not it feels like a proper Aston. First and foremost, an Aston Martin should always be fun to drive. Porsche proved with the original Cayenne that an SUV could drive as well as a sports car, so I'm not going to give Aston Martin any passes if the DBX is not as fun as some of their other models. From a performance standpoint, the DBX is no slouch with a twin turbocharged 4-liter V8 mated to a 9-speed automatic transmission, sending power to all 4 wheels. It's the same engine you can get in other Aston models like the DB11 and Vantage, but it's not a proper Aston Martin engine. They actually buy it from Mercedes-AMG in Germany, so you'll find this V8 in a variety of Mercedes products ranging from the C-Class up to the S-Class. Aston tunes it to be a little bit different from the Mercedes application. There's a little bit different sound profile from the exhaust. It's much more low and growly, like a proper Aston should be. I think it sounds really good and a little bit different in character than one of the AMG models with this engine. But if I'm being honest here, the performance is not breathtaking in a straight line. It will not pin you back in your seat and take the wind out of your lungs. It produces 542 horsepower and 516 pound-feet of torque, which I can't believe I'm saying this, is actually a bit low for this segment. You'll get a lot more from something like a BMW X5M or a Porsche Cayenne Turbo or one of the Mercedes cars with this exact same engine. Those produce over 600 horsepower. I'm just nitpicking here though, because the DBX will still hit 60 miles an hour in just 4.3 seconds. If you keep your foot planted, it'll go to 181 miles an hour. So it's definitely not slow by any regard, but there are some SUVs on the market with higher performance than the Aston Martin DBX. So the V8 engine is the only one you can get right now, but we've seen some spy shots. Aston Martin has been testing some other DBX mules on the Nürburgring. We saw one that has like a charging port, meaning that they're definitely going to do a plug-in hybrid version of the DBX, and we saw another one that looks like a higher performance model. They could possibly shove their 5.2-liter twin turbocharged V12 into this, and that could produce over 700 horsepower. Stay tuned to carbuzz.com for more information about other DBX variants, but I'm very excited if they up the performance on this with a 12-cylinder or even a plug-in hybrid. I think both of those sound like really neat ideas. So until those faster versions arrive, Aston Martin has not won the raw performance battle against some of its other competitors, but Aston Martin has never really been in the business about making the quickest cars to 60 miles an hour or the highest top speeds. They want cars that are enjoyable to drive, and here the DBX does not disappoint. In fact, it shines like a superstar. I'm gonna go ahead and put the car into its Sport Plus setting. We've been driving in GT or Grand Touring mode as of now. That's the default setting. We've got an individual mode, a sport mode, and a Sport Plus mode. That last one is really going to change the characteristics of how this car drives. All right, so now let's see how fun the DBX is. We're gonna put our foot down. Oh boy, it kicks. Woo-hoo! I mentioned that it's not the fastest car in this segment, but it definitely has plenty of get up and go. This 9-speed Mercedes sourced automatic, which is normally very soft and plush when you're driving along. Normally in GT mode, rapid, it shifts super quickly, it kicks down well in Sport Plus mode. You hear the nice crackles and pops from the exhaust in Sport Plus mode. It really becomes a completely different animal in Sport Plus mode. I will totally forgive Aston Martin for not building the fastest SUV on the planet, because who really needs their SUV to go 200 miles an hour? Where this car really shines is when you get it into the bendy stuff. And when you get to a bend, you're going to really love the triple chamber active air suspension, which is powered by a 48-volt mild hybrid system. So basically, this thing can use electricity to pump air wherever it needs and reduce roll. So I'm going through the corner now, it's gonna put more pressure to that corner, so it basically eliminates roll in this car. The suspension is capable of generating up to 1,400 Newton meters of force on each corner. It is one of the flattest handling SUVs I've ever driven. But if I had to nitpick, and I do because I'm a car reviewer, it's gonna be on this 9-speed automatic transmission, which is also sourced from Mercedes-Benz. It's not my favorite transmission. It's not the quickest thing I've driven. When you go to shift, there's a little bit of a delay from when you pull the paddle. Now, Aston Martin has designed these amazing real metal paddles that are column mounted, so they're always where you left them, not turning with the wheel. I absolutely love pulling them, but the transmission itself just does not respond as quickly as some others that I've driven from Porsche or BMW or even Alfa Romeo. In this one area, the DBX is not quite as good as some other SUVs I've driven, but I'm totally willing to forgive the transmission. It's not that big of an issue. I think the rest of this car is so perfect at what it set out to do that the transmission isn't gonna bug anybody enough for me to not recommend it. When this car is driving normally in GT mode, it's so quiet, it's so comfortable, it's such a great grand touring car. And then when you go ahead and put it into its Sport Plus mode, it becomes a completely different animal. I love how Aston Martin routes most of the power to the rear wheels when you're in sport mode. You can actually get this thing to oversteer. It's super crazy. I've really not driven very many SUVs like it that are quite as fun. I've driven other fast SUVs, but this one just has a dynamicism, a connection to the driver that most do not. There's only a handful of SUVs in the world that will put such a big smile on your face while also being comfortable. Maybe the Alfa Romeo Stelvio was my favorite SUV to drive before, but it's so uncomfortable. The interior is nowhere near this nice. So I think as a whole, as a combined unit, the DBX has just replaced the Alfa as the best driving SUV I've ever experienced. It's super brilliant. So now that we've experienced how fun the DBX is out on the road, let's go ahead and pull over so that we can check out the interior. So as we pull over to check out the interior, now is a great time to remind everybody to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell to be alerted of all of our latest videos. If you want to learn more about the 2021 Aston Martin DBX, be sure to check out carbuzz.com. So we've seen that the DBX is an amazing driver's car, but there's a lot more towards making a fine SUV than just making it drive well. For example, you've got to have a great interior, and here the DBX is kind of hit or miss. I'm going to explain why that is. Let's start with the materials, where this cabin is super well appointed. We've got some of the softest leather I've ever felt. There's beautiful stitching everywhere on the dash. These seats have some really intricate stitch marks. It really just shows you what Aston Martin's handmade feel is really all about. We've got other nice materials too, like wood here on the dashboard. That's real wood, of course. We've got metal everywhere, metal door handles, metal paddles, glass shifter buttons. Everything in here looks like what it is when you go to touch it. There's nothing fake or cheap in this cabin. And unfortunately, the tester that Aston Martin sent me is a little bit bland on the interior. It's just black everywhere. But if you go with the Q department, that's Aston Martin's custom division, you can get pretty much anything you want. If you want purple leather, they can do that. If you want it to be pink and orange, they'll make it pink and orange. It's just one way where Aston Martin is a little bit more special than your average SUV. And if you don't like leather, which this cabin is absolutely filled to the brim with, you can also get a wool interior. I haven't been able to sit in it, but that sounds really awesome and something I might look at if I were ordering a DBX. Now, although the cabin is really pretty to look at, you can tell that this was Aston's first attempt at building an SUV because some of the buttons are just laid out a little bit weird. For example, the shifter is all the way up here with these glass buttons with the engine stop start for some reason in the middle. Aston's been doing this for years, but it is kind of far away. We've got this big central transmission. We do have some storage underneath, but there's not a lot of other places to put your phone and stuff. So definitely not the most organized of SUVs. And while we're on the subject of things that aren't really optimized in here, we gotta talk about this 10.25 infotainment system, which looks like it should be a touchscreen. It's right there. You could obviously just touch it, but it's not. You actually use this rotary style controller. You also have like a touchpad here that you can use to control it. You might recognize this entire setup. It's actually a Mercedes-Benz unit. Just like the engine, Aston has decided to borrow its infotainment technology from Mercedes-Benz. You might think that would be a good thing. Mercedes is usually way ahead of the curve in terms of technology, but not in this case. This is the Mercedes-Benz Command system, which is actually 2 generations old at this point. Mercedes has gone back to touchscreens on their most recent infotainment, but that's not what Aston Martin has decided to cherry pick here. The system is very outdated when you compare it to some other rivals like the Bentley Bentayga or Lamborghini Urus. Luckily, we do have Apple CarPlay to alleviate some of those issues, so we do have good voice command and navigation here. But if you go back to the stock system, you're going to see that it looks a little bit plain, and navigating it is just a little bit difficult in terms of inputting destinations. So I would highly recommend you plug in your iPhone and just use CarPlay. Unfortunately, if you have an Android device, you're out of luck because Android Auto is not available on the DBX. And the infotainment isn't the only thing that I'm not a huge fan of. I don't love the touch capacitive buttons for things like the heated and ventilated seats right here. I don't know why they couldn't have just gone with regular buttons, because they have plenty of them right here for things like the lane keep assist and the mode select and all of that. So I wish that this would have been better arranged and maybe have a little bit more storage up here. Wrapping up on the technology front, we have another screen right here that replaces the analog gauges, which is a little bit disappointing because Aston Martin had some of the prettiest gauges in the automotive industry, but I think they're getting a lot better with these digital gauges. You can control this middle section with whatever you want. You can back out of here to have it show navigation, radio, media, or your trip information. And there's another cool function here. If I hit this one button on the steering wheel, now I can get rid of the tachometer in case I don't need it with my fuel economy, and I can even make that a really cool James Bond style map. That's something that Bond himself would think is pretty cool. We're going to wrap up the interior here on the back seats where there's not too much to talk about. I do have just under 42 inches of legroom, so it is a nice spacious back seat. The seats themselves are very comfortable and very leaned back, although there's not a lot of adjustability here. We do have our own climate controls with heated and ventilated seats back here, but I do wish there was some kind of infotainment for the kids to play with back here. I guess you'll have to just keep them entertained with that V8 exhaust note, and they can always look up at this beautiful panoramic roof. We're going to wrap up on the cargo space where the DBX is good, not the biggest SUV in the world. We get a little over 22 cubic feet of space back here, but Aston Martin does not quote a figure when the seats are folded. They are at least very easy to drop the seats. You just have 2 power buttons right here. Click those and the seats will fold down automatically. And we do have duplicates of those buttons there in the second row. Now, if you're not going to use your DBX like an average person would use their SUV, you can get some special packages back here, like a special event package, which is going to give you some really nice leather cushioned seats, a picnic basket, an umbrella, and things like that if you're into that sort of super luxury vibe. Now, one last thing I want to mention while we're back here are these really cool buttons right here. I mentioned to you that 48 volt mild hybrid system while we were out driving. It can do more than just keep the DBX level during cornering. If you push this button, you can actually lower the rear end of this car to make loading and unloading easier. And then you can push this button to lift it back up. And as you can see, the buttons make it go extremely quickly because it's 48 volt. This is a really nice, cool feature. We're going to wrap up with the exterior. This is an area where many exotic automakers have struggled to make their SUV designs look cohesive with the rest of their lineups. But in this case, I think that the Aston Martin DBX looks like the company's other sports cars. Aston Martin has not gone overboard with the front end styling. They've kept the signature grille as it looks on a DB11 or a DBS. They haven't made it massive like a Lamborghini Urus or a Bentley Bentayga. I love the traditional headlights. They look very familiar Aston. We've got these cool intakes here on the hood, and one of my favorite elements are these DRL running lights, which actually double as functional air intakes for the brakes. Here at the side, we've got standard 22-inch wheels that are absolutely gorgeous, and these are not even the prettiest wheels on offer. We've got some cool details here over on the side, including these flush door handles like you get on the sports cars that kind of just pop out. We've got a really low coupe-like roofline here at the back that's really interesting, and then we come around to the tailgate where the styling gets just a little bit controversial. Here at the back is where the DBX kind of gets controversial. A lot of SUVs just look the same, even the Bentleys and Lamborghinis of the world, but Aston Martin really wanted the DBX to stand out. That's why their designers gave it the same styling that you get on the Vantage sports car. You have this really cool kick-up spoiler here with this taillight that kind of wraps around. I think it looks really interesting and definitely similar to the Vantage. We've also got this really cool spoiler up here above the glass that kind of reminds me of like an Escort Cosworth. And then down below you have this massive black diffuser area with these big, gorgeous exhaust pipes that of course sound fantastic. Now, I think some people are not gonna like this design, but I've been getting a lot of compliments on it, so I do think that people like how different the DBX looks here in the back. So that was the 2021 Aston Martin DBX. Pricing starts at a hefty $176,000, and with options you can get this well over $200,000. That is a lot of money to spend on your family SUV, but I actually, believe it or not, think that the DBX is worth every penny. The DBX might be expensive compared to options like the BMW X5 and Porsche Cayenne, but if you compare it to things like the Bentley Bentayga, Rolls-Royce Cullinan, and Lamborghini Urus, it's actually a little bit of a bargain. And it might not be as luxurious as the Bentley or the Rolls-Royce, nor as sporty as the Lamborghini, but as an all-rounder, I think the DBX is one of the best SUVs you can buy. This is the most fun I've had in any crossover, bar none. Of course, there are gonna be some little issues. This is Aston Martin's very first SUV, remember. I think they could really improve on that infotainment, maybe borrow some newer Mercedes-Benz technology, and I can't wait to see if they put a V12 under the hood, because that will just make this absolutely perfect. But as it sits, I think the DBX is a really good time, a really great luxury car, and overall, one of the best SUVs ever built. We really hope you've enjoyed this review of the 2021 Aston Martin DBX. For more videos like it, be sure to check out the rest of our channel, hit the subscribe button, and ring the notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos. I'll see you next time.